This is The Jason Jones Show, powered by Mudhouse Media. Now, here's Jason Jones.
Broadcasting on a beautiful summer day from the hill country of Texas, welcome to The Jason Jones Show. I am your host, and today we're going to be interviewing my old friend, Terry Schilling. You know him from the American Principles Project. You know him from the Steve Bannon Show, War Room Pandemic. You know him from that. And I've known Terry now for almost, I believe, 20 years. I've watched him grow up from a young man, college student, into a leading voice, maybe the leading voice for the family in the United States of America. Terry and I are going to talk about the battle within the GOP for life and how that led to the overturning of Roe versus Wade. We talk about transgender ideology. It's a wide-ranging conversation. And before we get on with the interview, we talk a lot about families and how great families are and how people are afraid of having children. You know, I have 7 children. I have been a father since I was a teenager. And the difference in age between my youngest sibling and my oldest child is 2 years. I have been changing diapers since I was 2. This is a true story. I have a bit of a break now. I do have grandchildren, but I don't change. I would, but I just don't. But we talk about the fear of children, and it's bizarre to me. This is what I woke up to today. 3 of my children each had a friend spend the night. Woke up, had to do a conference call. It's a Saturday morning. I was out late because Armin Chakmakian, Grammy-nominated recording artist who manages the Vulnerable People Project's evacuation and resettlement list for Afghanistan, he had a concert last night. I was out there all night. So then I had to wake up early for a meeting this morning. Saturday, but, we work early, bright and early. Sun's not even up, doing a conference call. And then I come out of my office to a Chopped challenge. My children and their friends, they made all of these breakfast pastries. I don't know. They were wonderful, wonderfully plated. It was unbelievable. This is what it is to have children. Then we're going to go to the river today, and then tonight there's going to be a barbecue. I just want everyone to have a big, beautiful family. It's the best way to live. You don't have to have children to have a big, beautiful family, but someone's got to have a lot of children in your family. I mean, a family's not mom, dad, kid. A family is mom, dad, children, aunts, uncles. Not everyone's going to get married. Not everyone's going to have children. But we if we can, we should. If you're married, it's the purpose. I wanted 12. I wanted 120 grandchildren. I only have 7 children and 2 grandchildren. I don't think I will be making the 120 grandchildren. This introduction's digress. This episode is being brought to you by Epic Times. And Epic Times is the newspaper for you and for your family. You need to subscribe. If you go to ireadepoch.com right now, you will be informed so you can stay free and get the digital and print subscription for $1 for the first month. When you use the code Jason Jones, it's $77 for the year. That is a deal. And you know it's the best newspaper. So let me ask you, if you know, why haven't you subscribed? Go to ireadepoch.com. Subscribe today. This episode is also being brought to you by the Vulnerable People Project, standing in solidarity with the most vulnerable people in the world when times are challenging. And it's challenging right now for us across Afghanistan, Ukraine, Pakistan, and the eruption of violence in Ethiopia. There's a lot to be done. We're sending a team to Ukraine to start demining where the Russians have left, but they left behind landmines that children are stepping on. We'll be sending that team over in a couple weeks. We'll be talking about that on the Jason Jones Show. But if you want to be a part of that, go to thegreatcampaign.org, become a monthly donor, and as always, mypillow.com, our faithful sponsor. Go to mypillow.com, use the code Jones, and you're going to get ridiculous discounts on all of Mike's products. Let's interview. This guy is something else, full of life, become quite the big shot. I'm lucky. You know when some of your friends become big shots and you're like, hey, bro, come on my show. And they're like, I will. call me next week, and then they never come on. But this guy's a big shot. He comes on the show. Terry Schilling from the American Principles Project. Longest, weirdest, most distracted introduction. I had too much sugar because of the Chop Challenge. I blame my children, all right? Terry Schilling on the Jason Jones Show. Terry Schilling, welcome to the Jason Jones Show.
Thanks for having me, my friend. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on, if for no other reason to let you know that if you need a pillow, you can use the code Jones, and you will get deep discounts over there at mypillow.com.
You know, I'm up to my neck in pillows, but I do need some more slippers, and I've heard great things about the Giza sheets. Does your code apply to those too?
No, not only the Giza Dream sheets, you'll get the best price ever. Did you know that there's inflation happening right now?
Yeah.
Babylon Bee just informed me that, did you see the Babylon Bee today with Hunter Biden complaining about the inflation of crack?
So much.
What?
It's just so much. I love that website.
No, I don't envy. I have never envied anyone. I've admired people like, oh, I admire, but I've never been like, ugh, I hate them because I wish I were like them. That's how I feel about the creators of Babylon Bee. I hate them because I want to be them. They're so funny. How come I can't be that funny? I've digressed. Okay, so Terry Schilling, you are the executive director of America's top defender of the family, American Principles Project, but you and I, we go way back.
Way back, way back.
So do you want to tell the story? So what we're doing here is 49 days in a row of podcasts celebrating the end of Roe. And so I knew I had to have you on because I specifically want to talk about the fight within the Republican Party for life, because that's how you and I met. But do you remember how we met?
Oh, yeah. So it was back in 2007. I was heavily involved in college Republicans at Franciscan University, and working with Billy Valentine, my college roommate. We're best friends. We're still best friends today. And he was telling me about this guy, Sam Brownback, who was running for president, senator from Kansas, go out to CPAC, do some volunteer work there, and then we get offered internships. And I believe the first time that you and I met was in Iowa. I flew in, and, the thing is, Brownback was like, he was the presidential candidate for pro-lifers. Like, if that was the issue that you really wanted to move, Sam Brownback was your guy. That was the motivating factor. And his whole campaign theme was pro-life, whole life. And I think he probably got that from you, actually.
No, I'll tell you where whole life comes from. It involves you and your friends. I'm going to tell you all about it. And I can't believe you don't know. But yeah, we launched the pro-life, whole life campaign for his presidential campaign. But go on.
So I fly out to Des Moines on a secret mission. And that secret mission is to expose Mitt Romney as a fake rhino pro-choice Republican, right? Mitt Romney had flip-flopped on every single issue, especially the pro-life issue, and we wanted to expose this. And my secret mission at this time, was to expose him by dressing up as a dolphin named Flip Romney, the dolphin. And do you remember this? You have to
remember it. I didn't know we were allowed to talk about this. I thought it was still a secret. I had Kristen Hawkins on, and I said that we're going to have a mutual friend of ours on, and I have evidence that he's a furry that I may release to the world.
Well, I don't know if dolphins are furry.
They don't have furs, but I think if you dress up as a dolphin and travel around the country, that's a little weird. All right, so I can't believe we're allowed to talk about this. I've still been keeping this a secret. All right.
I'm out of the closet.
You're out of the closet. Okay, so tell everyone about Flip Romney.
So Flip Romney was what we used to get earned media to expose Mitt Romney as a flip-flopper. Not just on abortion, though. I mean, on a host of issues, but primarily abortion. And it was extremely effective. So what happened was I got a taxi dressed as a dolphin. I mean, picture this, like a taxi cab driver picking up some kid in a dolphin costume and then just dropping him off right outside the Mitt Romney for President headquarters in Des Moines, Iowa. It was so much fun. And what was great is, Jason, you coached me through it. Like, you talked me, because I'm like nervous, like I'm going into the line. I'm going to this guy's campaign kickoff for his campaign headquarters.
All of his events, all of his barbecues.
And there were.
You had a shirt that said "Another flip flopper from Massachusetts, Flip Romney."
That's right. And I run into the event. There are probably 50 people in there, and I immediately just, at the time I'm probably 19, 20 years old, and I probably weigh 150 pounds soaking wet. I just get picked up immediately and thrown outside. But what was great is that the press came outside with me because it caused a commotion. And so we got news stories in Politico and the New York Times and a bunch of places with me talking about how, as a flip-flopper, I admired Mitt Romney as the ultimate flip-flopper. It was beautiful. But I think that was my first.
But you said I coached you through it. I don't remember that. So you wouldn't be. What did I say? Do you remember?
Well, I was nervous, right? And you basically were like, dude, you got this. You're going to be the star of the show. And specifically, I remember this, because I didn't want my face to be shown, right? If they took my mask off or my helmet mask off.
Okay.
And you showed me how to make a ninja mask using a long sleeve T-shirt. And you put your face.
Oh, I'm wearing
through.
that. That's what I wear when I broadcast this podcast. Is I have a ninja mask on right now. So I remember that. Okay, I remember showing you how you pull the sleeves and you use the hole in the middle for your eyes, and yeah.
Yeah, no, that was my first interaction with the famous Jason Jones, and it was beautiful. It was great.
Well, and by the way, what you did, and I didn't think we'd get to talk about this. I mean, you are a credible member of the conservative movement.
I'm an activist, though.
But you're on the Steve Bannon show regularly, and here we're admitting that you, from time to time, dress up as a dolphin.
Look, I'm willing to do, within limits, things that are humiliating, right? Or things that are, are crazy to save this country, right? Like I was telling Steve this off camera a few months ago at the March for Life. We hosted that together, and the thing is, if you asked me in 2007, which is the year that this happened, if I thought there would ever be a day where I'd be talking about transgenders and pornography and racists and communists in politics, I would have said you were crazy. And if I was leading, the leading anti-family group against all this stuff, I would have said you're crazy. Like, what's a transgender? But I'm willing to do this type of stuff, even though it's uncomfortable. It's not. It's not really like I'm not going to be able to get a great, lobbying gig after my time spent opposing the transgender agenda, right? Like, they don't really like those types of people that get these cultural issues.
Well,
but I'm willing to do it to save
win.
the country.
Yeah, but
right,
not until you win.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go to Iran. I want to go to Iran. If I go there now, I die. I want to go to China. If I go there now, I die. But I will be going to China when the CCP falls. I will be going to Iran when this regime falls, and you will get a good lobbying job when the LGBTQ, whatever that neoliberal behemoth collapses into the ocean and dies, which will happen in our lifetime.
Yeah, and when they're exposed for being groomers, right? I mean, ultimately, that whole movement is aimed at grooming our children, and not just like, I'm not saying like they're preparing them for like pedophilia, although that's part of it. They're grooming them to be sexual deviants. They're grooming them to be miserable and unhappy. I saw a video last night of a transgender activist who's encouraging people to go, quote, no contact. Have you heard of this? No contact?
No.
It's when you cut off all contact with your family and friends who don't support you. You just go dark.
It's official. They're a cult. That's what cults do.
It is a cult.
That's what cults do.
They want to isolate you. They want you to die alone. Like, Jason, we've talked about this. I think the first time I was on your podcast, we talked about, my father and his death. And like the only redeeming thing about my father's death was that he died surrounded by all 10 of his kids and his wife and the people that loved him. And what these people are encouraging is the exact opposite of that: dying alone, dying miserable. And there's something Luciferian about it. It's got a Luciferian flavor to it, where they just destroy you from the inside out. And we're up against a really evil movement. And the abortion issue is even worse than that, right? Because it separates.
Okay, hold on, you hit such an important point. I want to back up a little bit before we get to abortion, because your job is to preserve the family. We want to preserve the child in the womb from violence because, of course, we want to preserve human dignity and we want to preserve the family. But what you just talked about, loneliness, they want them to be lonely. We live in a very lonely world. If you're upset, if you're worried about the mental health crisis in this country, I am addled by the epidemic of loneliness. I see it all. I was a very lonely kid. You might find this hard to believe. I was maladjusted and weird. You find that hard to?
No, I believe it.
You believe it? I just
that's probably why you had so many kids. You were lonely and you wanted to guarantee that you actually had some friends.
Somebody liked me. No, but here's what it is. I was kind of an oddball kid, and I wouldn't say I was lonely, but I did feel alone a lot. And then when I joined the Army and I'm this young man, I remember just feeling lonely, very lonely. And but the moment I cut my son's umbilical cord when I was 18, I've never felt lonely again. And then as you become an adult, you meet friends, but I would say through the pro-life movement and then becoming a Christian and entering the Catholic Church, I just have too many friends now. Like Joe Rogan says, there's only so many spots in my parking lot, guys. Like you seem like a great person. I would really like to get to know you, but there's no more spaces left. I can't even pay attention to the people in my life right now. You know what I mean? When you're in the pro-life movement, exactly. You'll never be lonely. When you have a wife and children, you'll never be lonely. So they're telling these people to cut off their relationships with their family, their friends. When they get leukemia, who's going to be there for them? When they get hit by a bus and someone needs to turn them over every day and clean their bed sores and wipe their butt and change their diapers, who's going to do that? Only family's going to do that. And maybe when their mother, who they're shunning because their mother just can't get that, even though, you have a penis, you think you're a girl. She's just confused by that. You're going to shun her, but now she has MS and she needs someone to take care of her, but you're shunning her because she's so mean. Unbelievable. It's sad. You said it. It's Luciferian. It's as if the goal is to make us all lonely.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And the interesting thing is that these people, so you go no contact, you cut off the only people that love you enough to tell you the truth. You cut them out of your life. And if you read the studies, it's not me saying this. I'm reading this stuff from Pink News and Human Rights Campaign and all the LGBT movement. They're saying this stuff. I read a story a few years ago that really motivated me to get involved in the transgender fight. And it was about the loneliness of transgender people and their inability to find a partner, like a sexual partner. And they were saying no one wants to date trans people. No one wants to marry trans people. It's like, yeah, because marriage is about family. Marriage is about having kids. And if it creates these really unhappy situations where, you're not really fully a guy, you're not really fully a girl. And ultimately it's very hard, right? It's tough enough as just a guy who's a guy and identifies as a guy, doesn't have confusion. It's tough enough for him to find a woman, right? There's like 1% of the world is really ever going to even be interested in marrying you if you're lucky. And it's tough to find that 1%. And when you go down this route of the surgeries and the hormones and the weird lifestyle, you're limiting that to even a smaller group of people where you can't even find that loved one that you want to spend the rest of your life with. It's terrible.
I bet they said it was bigotry. It was bigotry that pushed them into not being able to find a partner.
Right. No, straight men who don't want to date women with penises are the problem. Right. Genital preferences in their mind is the problem. And you're a bigot if you have genital preferences. That's what they say. And at the end of it, you can believe whatever you want. You can accuse people of whatever you want, but you can't make people accept you. You can't make people love you. You have to earn that. And they this is an ideology that says, no, you're going to be forced to love me, which is another, like, it's something that it has in common with communism and Marxism, right? And it's forcing people to love, and that's anti-love. That goes against the heart of love.
Yeah, they don't know what love is. It's just so bizarre, and that's what bothers. I think you're one of the kindest, gentlest men I know, loving men I know. You just adore your family, and when you mentioned your father had passed away, your dad was someone that was so full of life that I forget that he passed away. It's not even believable, right? It's not even, wait, what? Every time I hear it, I can't believe it. They claim we're bigots because this bizarre ideology, which, by the way, I don't believe it's being pushed by trans people. I don't think there's a cabal of very wealthy trans people sitting around. I call this meeting to order. All right, next year, what we're going to do is push for transgender story hour. Where is this drive coming from? Because I just don't believe it. It doesn't make sense to me that such a small percentage of the population is harnessing all this power to get all of the corporations in the West to, at the same time, start advocating, having, Target, those bras that they give to young girls that identify as boys to hide their breasts. What are those called? Binders. How is that at Target?
Right.
I don't believe this is coming from the quote-unquote trans people. Where is this coming from, Terry Schilling?
So there's a few different places where it's coming from, and now it's kind of organically evolved into something much more nefarious. Primarily, this started with ideologues, people that wanted to, progressives that believe that the gender binary, the gender constructs, man and female, those two categories, that those hinder us and hinder our freedom, and that we have to liberate ourselves from that. Judith Butler is the architect of gender ideology. She's out of Berkeley, and she famously quipped that with transgenderism, what we're doing is we're using gender to destroy gender. So these progressives, they want to tear down all of society. They want to return us back to a state of nature. And to the point where that's why they want to destroy the family. They want to destroy the laws. They want to destroy every societal institution, including gender. And it's because you can't truly be liberated. You can't truly be free if your parents are instilling values in you, because you aren't free. You didn't choose that your parents chose that for you, which is a great argument against or in support of infant baptism, by the way. We can get to that later. But it's really, so it started off with ideologues, and then they took over the university system. And the university system has now indoctrinated, and I'll say it because I'm only racist against one group of people, and it's white college educated people, because they're the ones driving this, and they're really the big enemy here. And those
Tucker said that. Did you hear Tucker say that? He goes, I got to admit, it's just when I see a 36-year-old with a degree from Yale, a white woman, I hate her automatically. I hate her, and I felt, I'm with you, brother.
It's the only group that I'm really prejudiced against.
I meet you, and I assume you're an imperialistic lunatic that wants to shove some bizarre ideology down my throat and the throats of everyone on the planet Earth, from sub-Saharan Africa to the Amazon jungle.
That's exactly right. And so now those people infiltrated the local schools, the primary schools, and they're indoctrinating a group of people. But there's also this medical community. So this weird pedophilic guy named John Money was a doctor at Johns Hopkins, and he was a progressive. He believed that we're all products of our environment only. And so there was a situation, just real quick, there were twin boys, and one of the boys had a botched circumcision where they destroyed his genitalia. The parents were recommended to go see this Dr. John Money. He did the first sex change operation in America on a child. And he did these studies. He made the two boys do sexual acts to each other. It's a totally horrific story. We're releasing a report, actually, on this transgender industry very soon, and we cover this at American Principles Project. And he went immediately to the New York Times, deemed it a huge success. The New York Times runs with the story without really doing what's known as journalism, checking your sources, checking the facts, and getting involved, everyone involved in their side of it. Those two boys grew up. One of them overdosed from drugs, and then the other one, who was made to be a girl, committed suicide, sadly. This ended in horror. And this is the model for transgenderism and what we're going to be doing to millions of young children. So now there's like a medical industry that's making money off of it. The mastectomies, those cost $20,000. The bottom surgeries, those cost anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000. The hormone treatments are thousands of dollars a month, right? So there's now like big pharma's involved, the medical industrial complex is involved. It's a total nightmare. And then the company that makes the famous puberty blocking drug, Lupron, they're a company called AbbVie. That company made $826 million off of that puberty blocking drug in 2019 alone. So if they just put 2% of their profits into lobbying, they're double APT's budget. They're double the largest, the most well-funded political action committee for families. And that's just one company, right? So there's now an industry behind it. There's an ideology behind it. And it's taking on a life of its own. It's very coercive. But what's interesting is that you poll the American people on these issues, and the super majority is against, like not just 2-1, 3-1, opposed giving kids gender affirmation treatment. And that's when you word it how the left would word it. So it's a total monstrosity. We call it the Leviathan of transgenderism, because they try and act like it's a small movement. It's not. It's enormous, and it's very well funded. It's very powerful. And these people control the levels of power. They control our courts in a lot of areas. They control Congress. They control the state legislatures. They control the governorships. It's a beast, and we have to defeat it because it's so anti-human.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine today. By the way, we've digressed. Well, we got to come, but we're going to talk about, guys, we're going to talk about the fight for life in the Republican Party. But I was talking to a friend of mine. She's black. She's from America, but she lives in South Africa. And we were talking this morning, and she said, do you know when Destroyed the Black Family, when they started mouthing and saying things like a family, a two-parent family is a white social construct? She said, this is insane. She said, come here to Africa and sell your transgender ideology. Come here in Africa and tell somebody that a family is a white social construct, that trans ideology is a white, that the idea of there are only a men, or if you have a penis, you're a man, and a vagina, you're a woman, that's a white thing. They will look at you and they will laugh at you. And so what we're seeing, this is really cultural imperialism, right? It's starting here. It's a small group of elites trying to harness the power of the most powerful nation in the history of the world to export their ideology. Have we become the evil empire? I mean, have we become the regime that spreads an evil ideology around the world that even most of us don't cling to?
I think in many cases that's true, right? In the Obama administration, the only way that you could lose foreign aid to your country is if you banned if you even restricted abortion, or if you if you didn't have gay marriage or supported religious freedom. Those are the things that would cut you off from foreign aid. You could be an evil dictator. You could be withholding food and supplies and resources from your people. You could be a warlord, and they'd give you money as long as you didn't have gay marriage bans or any abortion bans or restrictions. It's unfortunate, and you're exactly right about the definitions of family. If you go outside of America, where they're not run by white college educated elites, you ask them what a family is.
We shouldn't say they're college educated, right? They're college indoctrinated.
College indoctrinated,
like cult indoctrination in a cult, a Gnostic cult. They're a part of a Gnostic cult. I'm sorry, they're not educated.
But if you ask them what a woman is, or what a man is, or even something a little bit more complicated, what a family is, they're going to give you a very straight and easy definition. They're going to say it's a mom, a dad, and a baby, right? And that's what they're going to say is a family. And you come here. I was at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, doing an interview on Radio Row, and I did an interview about the organization we're building, the NRA of Family Values. And the interviewer asked me, well, what is a family in your mind? And I said, well, it's the same thing that it is for the rest of the world. A mom and a dad and a child that live together and are married. That's a family. And he's like, well, what about two gay parents? What about a mom without a father? It's like, why do we have to make an exception to everything? Why do we have to? Words have meaning. And here's what's the funny thing is, if they can change the definition of what a woman is to be someone who identifies as a woman, which is what they want to change it to, they can change the definition of what a child is. And I've been talking about this a lot lately because this is ultimately their goal. The whole freak out over Ron DeSantis's Parents' Rights Education Act, which simply said you can't talk to children in kindergarten through third grade about about sex or gender identity. They had a freak out, and it's because they want to sexualize kids. So I think people think that when they legalize pedophilia, that they're going to argue about the rights of adults. No, it is going to be framed as liberating children from outdated social constructs and liberating and allowing them to reach their full sexual satisfaction and fulfillment. That you're going to be branded as a pedophobe, someone that wants to harm children by not allowing them to have sex.
Terry, on this note, in 90s, when I was in graduate school, I was a libertarian. I had a little libertarian club at Hawaii Pacific University. There was a professor there, very genteel, seemingly charming, nice man. And he had a wife and a young child. We were having a barbecue, a picnic, and age of consent laws came up. Oh, because I had been fighting to raise the age of consent law in Hawaii from 14 to 16. You'll love how I did it. I was still in college. I dressed up like a gigolo. I had like these big gold chains and a shirt buttoned down to my stomach, unbuttoned to my stomach, and I went and testified against the bill. I testified against raising the age of consent because love is love. And, if I find it at the playground, it's my business. You go to a nightclub, I go to a playground. Love is love. So this professor heard that I did that, and he was shocked. And he said, this is, by the way, how I began my migration from libertarianism to conservatism. He said, you believe that the state should interfere in consensual relationships? I'm like, well, I just don't think a child can consent to something like that because they can't wrap their mind around it and its consequences. And that's what family and society is for, to protect. He's like, well, that doesn't sound very libertarian to me. And I said to him, I pointed at his daughter. This is very crass. And I said, there's your daughter. What if I traded her a candy bar for sex? And she was like, that seems like a good deal. I love candy bars. Obviously, she doesn't know what sex is. But she thought, okay, a deal's a deal. I said, would you be fine with that? He goes, well, I hoped. He said, I hope I have raised her better than that. I'm like, she's 8, dude. You haven't raised her. You're raising her. She is 8. So to think, I think there are all those skeptics, right? Remember we were in Iowa, you'd come across some farmer who was a Democrat who, when you brought up abortion or these kind of bizarre issues, they would look at you like you were crazy. Do you remember? Did you ever have that experience? And they just didn't believe that these things were happening because in their little town, they never saw anything like this. So I just want people to know, there are the people out there now advocating for a quote-unquote child's right to have sex with an adult.
No, that's exactly right. Just look at Kentucky. In Kentucky, earlier this year, they were promoting sexy summer camp for kids in third grade to high school. And we released a video of the woman that was in charge of it talking about how they were going to promote sex for these kids. These people should be put in prison, right? Like just go back 20 years. Those people are going to prison. And not only that, they're probably not going to prison. They're probably actually going to get beat up by the local fathers in the town who are run out of town that way. And there's something to that. Jason, I think one of the things that really bugs me is that our society has demonized protective fathers, right? I tweeted the other day that I would never let my daughter date a Democrat. And these liberals attacked me and they said, what do you mean let? Well, as the father, I get to decide who comes into my home. I get to decide where my kids go. I'm in charge of this. And I'm the protector of my children and my wife and my family. And that's now being demonized by our fellow Americans. And I struggle to call them fellow Americans because there's just something
you
not
should ask
American
them, would you
about
let your daughter date a young man that was at the January 6th rally?
That's right.
How dare you?
That's right.
How dare you interfere in your daughter's freedom? Would you let your daughter date a Proud Boy? Oh, that's different.
The other thing is,
no, it's not, because I wouldn't let my daughter date a young man who thinks dismembering his child in the womb of the mother is an option. It ain't going to happen.
Right. And by the same standards, I wouldn't let my daughter date a Nazi. Right? Like there are people all over that I wouldn't let my daughter date. And that's just how it is. And, you know, when she's out of the house, fine. You have your own discretion to a certain point, but I don't have to support it. But at the heart of libertarianism, this is why I have a problem with it, is that libertarians really are, in their heart of hearts, progressive. Because the whole point of progressivism, what it seeks to do, is erase anything that keeps you from being fully liberated. And so while the communists want to use government to liberate us, to take over everything and create equity, libertarians want to erase all societal institutions and erase all parts of government that keep our society going. So they're really not, libertarians are, that's why so many libertarians voted for Hillary Clinton or voted third party in the most important election we ever had. And why they've joined the left is because it's a much better natural fit, unfortunately. And I say that not to tell your libertarian listeners that they should join the Democrats. I say that to tell them you're not actually a libertarian. You don't really, when you say you're a libertarian, you're really probably just avoiding difficult conversations or debates.
That's what I was doing, right? Yeah, that's what I was doing. And that's what most libertarians are. I was at a Friends. You know what Friends of Abe is? Do you remember Friends of Abe?
Yeah.
So I was at a Friends of Abe.
Yeah, they're the Hollywood guy.
Yeah, I was a Hollywood conservative secret society. And I was at a Friends of Abe event, and there was a very by the way, I met what's his name? Caitlyn Jenner. No, Caitlyn. Who's the dude, the athlete? What's wrong? My brain's frozen right now.
Bruce Jenner.
Bruce. What's Bruce's name now?
It's Caitlyn now.
Okay, Caitlyn. Okay, I get it mixed up with his daughter. So I met Bruce Jenner at one of these events. So, but I was at an event, and I had said off the cuff to this couple that something about, we were talking about conservatism versus libertarianism, and I said, well, a libertarian is just a Republican that smokes pot or cheats on his wife. And then she looked at me and she goes, oh, thank goodness. My husband's a pothead.
So good.
It's a true story. It's a true story from Friends of Abe. So, you know, libertarians to me, and are, when you say they are the same as progressives, it's I say they're the napalm that defoliates civil society, breaks down community, and then the left, they're like the A-10 warthog that flies in when there are no more trees and nothing that you to hide from. I'm sorry, like the Agent Orange. So libertarianism is like Agent Orange that causes the trees to lose their leaves and die. And so then now families have nowhere to hide, individuals have nowhere to hide, and then the left comes in like an A-10 warthog and grinds you to pieces.
And it's why libertarians will tell you we can't ban drag queen story hour from public libraries. We can't ban pornography. That's a First Amendment right. No, it's not. Pornography is no more a First Amendment right than libel is, or any other obscenities, right? You know, we don't allow ultimate free speech in this country. There are limits to everything, and they make you impotent, right? If you can't ban the sexualization of children, then we probably should reform the Constitution, to be honest. I mean, I don't think that's what the founders had in mind. I don't think a bunch of guys in 1776 or 1789 had in mind drag queen story hour or online pornography and that being protected by the First Amendment. In fact,
maybe Ben Franklin. We'll give him Ben Franklin.
Yeah, that's probably right. That's probably right.
But he would have not done it publicly. He would have quietly done it. He'd have done it in his, he'd have kept it secret.
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right. Where do we go from here? Do you want to shift gears? How much time do you have?
I've got about a half hour.
Let's take this next half hour, because what we've demonstrated is everyone needs to go to your website, What is the best website? You have two domains.
SaveTheFamily.app or AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. Both will get you to basically the same place.
So yeah, SaveTheFamily.app, AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. Go there, become a member, because we need to come together and defend our families, and this is the place to do it. And this was a digression. We're about to get to what I wanted to talk to you about, but it was important because our families are under assault, and it's not enough. I've been saying this again and again during this 49 episodes. It's not enough that our children are our posterity's born. We want them to be born into a humane, kind, flourishing society. And this ideology that is stealing romance, eros, friendship, now with this cult-like, what is it called again? Where you cut everyone off?
No contact.
This no contact garbage. By the way, we will defeat them, unfortunately, if I'm a betting man, the way we defeated the abortion industry. We're going to have to wait till 50 million people, 100 million people's lives have been utterly wrecked. Then the people that limp away from that wreckage will do battle and bring about the victory, the way post-abortive people have delivered victory against the abortion industry and will continue to deliver victories against the abortion industry. It's going to be those poor children that are mutilated, that are destroyed, and that survive. They don't commit suicide. They limp away to wage a war against those who've destroyed them. I think that's how it's probably going to happen. But if we marshal out now, the majority is with us. We're like the elephant tied to the stick. Just walk away. We can just walk away from this rain. I think we should turn June into Veterans Month. No more rainbow flag. We need a flag for veterans and give them June. That's what I say. But let's shift gears. Veterans get a day. LGBTQ plus get a month. Think about that. Anyway, you were 19 years old. You were a father, by the way, already when I met you. You were going to Steubenville, and we talked about this in depth in our first time I interviewed you on the show. And you stepped into what I believe was one of the most important every cycle is extremely important, but you and about 50 interns from Steubenville arrived in Des Moines, Iowa. And I believe that the battle for the soul of the Republican Party that took place in 2008 was a necessary condition to get to where we are now. Do you agree with me on that? And did you know at the time how important what you were doing was?
I was just there having fun, thinking I was, helping out, getting great experience on a presidential campaign, and I did think we had a great shot of winning, and actually overturning Roe. And the thing that motivated me to get behind Brownback was what he did to thwart Harriet Meyer's nomination. That was who Bush had nominated and had to withdraw because he had sniffed her out as not really being fully pro-life and not being fully on board with overturning Roe. And because Brownback did that and waged that war there, we got Samuel Alito instead, and he was the guy that authored the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe. But the interesting thing is that summer was pivotal for me and so many other of the interns.
And how many of those interns are leaders in the pro-family movement, pro-life movement?
Well, that's what I was just getting to is, Billy Valentine worked in communications on that campaign and did press. He's the vice president of government affairs for the Susan B. Anthony list, right? These guys all went on to go work for other campaigns and have a big impact, and it was so formative. And we were out there really we were doing door knocking, we were doing phone banking and persuasion and talking to people about why we needed to overturn Roe, why we needed pro-life justices, and why we needed to ban abortion in this country. And it really it was like sharpening, all of us, and wielding us into future leaders of the next generation in politics and in the pro-life movement. It was one of the best summers of my life. It was incredibly formative.
Yeah, I was in awe. This was right before social media was really a thing. Maybe there was MySpace. I don't even know. I definitely never had a social media account. And I know social media didn't play any role in this primary. It wasn't powerful yet, the way it would become later. I guess Facebook was there, but it wasn't the behemoth that it had become, and it wasn't important and really and decisive in delivering victory. So this was old-fashioned door knocking, going to festivals, going to fairs, recruiting people, going to bookstores, Christian bookstores, and asking for their best customers' phone numbers, things like that. That's what we did. Do you remember the first day that we had the team meeting with all the interns?
I do. We were told, you told us actually, all 50 of us, you said specifically, look around the room because these are going to be the people that you're working with in the future. They're going to be the people, some of you are going to get married and have children together. And we were also, Martin Gillespie also told us to check our egos at the door, that our opinions didn't matter, which was great too.
He's a tough dude. Yeah, he's a tough guy. I was like the football coach giving you guys the rah-rah speech. And he was the cynical East Coast guy going, act right. And ignore the blonde lunatic. He's a little crazy. He's a little touched. Yeah, but I remember I said to you guys, look around because these are the folks that are going to end abortion in America. And you're going to meet your best friends this summer. And some of you are going to get married. How did that work out for you?
No, that worked out great. That's the campaign that I met my wife, and we have 6 kids together now. And that's a lot of kids to be brought into the world through the pro-life movement, essentially, right? And what's funny is we were debating. We just had number 6, little girl. And we were debating her name. So she was born about a month early. And so she went like 4 hours after being born before we gave her a name. And we went with Abigail Josephine, but we're going to call her Abby Jo. And what got us over the top was it kind of sounds like an abolitionist. There's something very American about it.
And kind of like Abby Johnson, abolitionist, Abby Jo.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think about Abby Johnson, but yeah. Yeah. But there's something, it was a hearty name. And I know that, overturning Roe, as your listeners and is just the first step. Now we can actually fight. And so it's going to be up to us to continue to train our kids to turn this country into a country that promotes a culture of life and protects especially starts with protecting the most vulnerable and works out from there. And so, yeah, that was how we landed on the name Abby Jo. It just sounded like an abolitionist type name.
I love it. Well, and I thought you said we have to train our kids. They want to train our kids too because they're not having kids, right? Their kids are ending up in medical waste bags and dumps, sadly, tragically. So they want to indoctrinate our children, and that ain't going to happen to my children. I'm the liberal in my family. By far. My wife is like, you're not the man I married. Like, I haven't changed at all. I have not changed on a single issue. You just become Pat Buchanan on me. I love Pat. But when I met you, you were Bernie Sanders, and now you're Pat Buchanan. Speaking of wives, brother, okay, your wife has an elegance and a grace. I would have never put you two together. You're just like a happy-go-lucky Midwestern boy, and your wife looks like she's, a Rockefeller. She has this dignity and stature about her. I would have never put you two. How did you pull that off?
I
hope I'm not hurting your feelings, brother. I mean, you did good. No. I just would have never placed money on this bet.
No, what I tell people is, look, my wife is amazing. She is really smart, really kind, loves our family more than anyone could, works really, really hard, but most importantly, she's hot. And that, she's very, very pretty.
I don't know if she's hot, but she's beautiful and she's graceful. My wife's hot, but she's elegant. And you're just, you're a country boy from the Quad Cities. Who made the first move?
Game, man.
Who made the first move?
I tricked her. So Martin, I worked a deal with Martin. Martin told her that he needed to send her and I into Des Moines to pick up 50 cell phones for all of the interns that were arriving. And what she didn't know is that there were no cell phones that we were picking up. And instead, I was taking her on a date to the Cheesecake Factory. And so we're walking up to the mall to pick up the cell phones that don't exist. And I'm like, hey, let's just swing in here to the Cheesecake Factory. And
this was during the campaign?
This was during the campaign. Yeah, we took, we took a night off.
I'm telling Senator Brownback this was not allowed. Okay, keep going.
But I had a fake ID at the time, so she was a year older than me, so she could drink. But we had a couple glasses of wine at the Cheesecake Factory and went home and watched Raging Bull, and the rest is history. I told her, to be fair, before we really started dating, I was telling her that I was going to marry her. And so I kind of just indoctrinated her, and she went from, we're not getting married, there's no way, to, well, what's your plan? How are you going to support us? How are you going to take care of your family? And when she started saying, what's your plan, I knew I had won. And it was mine. But yeah, I have a way, Jason.
You have a way. Well, no, and I tell people the pro-life movement is the best place to marry up.
Yes,
right?
That's right. You're
just surrounded by the most wonderful women in the world. And I don't want to tell the converse of it. Well, for women, you just got a hard breaks wherever you go in society. So the pro-life movement's where you're going to meet great men. But there's just not a lot of good men out there. There just seems to be an ocean of wonderful women and a bunch of twits. Our side of the field we're not pulling our weight. Us guys need to step it up.
That's right.
All right, I want to get back to politics. So you've been in politics since you were a college student. So you're very young. You started off on the national level. You now run a very influential national organization. So tell me where you see 2000. So you had the 2008 election. You had 2012, 16. You saw the fight and how aggressive it was. And you probably saw a little bit how aggressive I could become in the internal politics, especially within the party, how hard the fighting was. Almost like a mob. I mean, it was intense, right? The fighting within the party to defend life was probably more intense than outside of party politics.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so we're coming out with a report this summer called Threats to the American Family, and we're labeling out the top 25 threats to the American family. We cover, big pharma, human rights campaign, all the Planned Parenthood, all of that. But I wrote the number one article, and we labeled the Republican Party as the biggest threat to the American family.
It. Okay, map that out. As a member of the GOP, please explain that to me, because I agree.
Right, it's because ultimately, we know Democrats are evil. They're going to do bad things. They start with bad assumptions, and they're going to pass bad policies that hurt our families and kill our babies. It's up to the Republican Party to be an effective opposition to that evil, right? Evil is always going to exist. We live in a fallen world. But what really matters is whether or not there's an effective opposition that actually opposes them. And for so long, the Republican Party was fake on all these issues. That's why we have transgender children now, just 5 years after Roe v. Wade, or after Obergefell, right? After we make gay marriage nationwide, we now have children getting sex change operations. That comes from a pathetic non-opposition party, a fake and controlled opposition. And so back in 2012, excuse me, in 2012, if you go back, Todd Akin and Richard Murdoch were two Senate candidates that had said offensive things about abortion. Essentially, they didn't support exceptions for rape when it comes to abortion bans. And after Mitt Romney lost, the RNC, the official party, released an autopsy, and they said social issues distracted from our winning economic message in 2012, and that's why we lost. And if we're going to win in the future, we need to adopt a big tent strategy on social issues and double down on our pro-corporate, pro-business owner, pro-rich person economic messaging. And there was a real risk that the pro-life movement was going to go the same way that it went in other countries that stopped fighting on abortion, like the UK, and only have 9% of their citizens oppose abortion rights. The pro-life community organized and engaged in politics. They showed Republicans how to win on pro-life and how to make Democrats pay a price for their extremism. And they got President Trump to commit. President Trump, a guy that in 1999 was saying that he opposed a partial birth abortion ban. They got President Trump to commit to nominating pro-life justices, to passing pro-life laws, and it worked. They held his feet to the fire. They were good allies. They didn't abandon him when it got rough. They supported him. And because of that, we overturned Roe. And so you're exactly right. Go on.
Name some of those folks that stuck with them and were early, because I was not an early supporter. I don't know if you were. I was a Cruz guy. I was Ted Cruz all the way. But there were those who stood by him when there was the grab him by the. Let's try. I've never done this before. Grab him by the. Okay, I've never used. I've got all these buttons with make sound effects. Grab him by the. Okay, and they stuck with them, and I was mad at a lot of these pro-life leaders. And,
that's right.
And so we have to give them credit. They had vision. I asked Father Frank, how did you know? How did Alveda King know? Who am I missing? I think, was Frank Cannon one of these early guys that stood by him as well?
Yeah. It was Father Frank and Alveda and Frank Cannon. Marjorie Dannenfelser at the Susan B. Anthony list, she really stuck by him in those days. I mean, if you think about it, this was when everyone was abandoning it. Imagine if Trump had every one of the pro-life in the pro-life leadership abandoning him and not supporting him. He would have abandoned them. That's his whole shtick. Is when you say bad things about him and abandon him, he goes even harder and attacks you. And there was this solid group of pro-lifers who stood by him in the darkest time that he had. And
a great social and professional cost, because a lot of pro-lifers and donors were furious with them. Right.
Imagine if he doesn't win. Right. It was
if they didn't win, and that was the bet that Never Trumpers were making. Right. They thought he would never win. They would come out the leaders of a new conservative movement, and here they are, just pathetic and cast out to the netherworld. So,
and I don't want to get too religious on this, but there was something Christ-like with their embrace of Trump and not abandoning him, right? Like they were willing to risk dying. They were willing to risk their entire life work to get it done, because they knew that if he lost, it was over anyway, and they were going to die. So basically they said, well, we're going to pick up the cross, and if people are going to make fun of us and they're going to abandon us, so be it, but we have to take a chance. We have to throw the Hail Mary. And it paid off more than they could have ever predicted, I think. Because even when he got elected, there was still the risk of a Harriet Miers popping up, right? And choosing the wrong guy. We've chosen the wrong guy so many times. Republicans, a lot of people don't know this, but Republicans had actually made the majority of Supreme Court nominations between 1960 up until 2022, right? A lot of people don't know that, and we still never overturned Roe. And it was such a perfect storm. And
they deserve great. All the Marjorie and Frank and Frank Pavone and Frank Cannon and Alveda King. I was with Walter Hoy, who is a great pro-life hero. I don't know if you know Walter from San Francisco, and black pro-life leader, pastor. And there was a black conservative, black pro-life event at the convention in Ohio. I was there as a national, national chair for Cruz for President, but I was also covering the convention for a news outlet as a journalist and as an on-camera guy. So I shouldn't say this. I just had no faith in Trump. So I just thought, oh, this is unbelievable. That when he went to speak, I went and ate a pizza and got hammered. Okay. And that is true. So then I come back and I'm back on camera. Like, this is Jason Jones coming to you from the convention, but I had been drinking too much. I just thought it was over. Now, our mutual friend, Steve Bannon, I went to Milo. Milo had his big, crazy party. And I had some friends from Hong Kong that were big Milo fans. So we went, and Steve and I were hanging out. And I just, was depressed. And this is unbelievable. And we're never going to overturn Roe now, and da-da-da. And Steve just laughed at me. He goes, you just don't get Trump. And I said, well, what is there to get? He's not a conservative. He goes, did I ever say he was a conservative? He said, Trump loves America. Trump's for Americans, black Americans, white Americans, every Americans. He's for Americans. He also wants us to behave right around the world. That's it. That's his ideology. He wants what's best for America, and he wants us to behave properly around the world. And if you look at his administration, he fought what was best for the working class and middle class. And he made us, we behaved. We didn't start wars. We didn't shatter regimes. We didn't create famines or pave the way for genocides. In fact, he ended the genocide in Iraq as ISIS was raging, the JV team. ISIS is the JV team, and Obama allowed the JV team to maraud, rape, and pillage across Syria and Iraq. Trump put an end to that. What do you think about this? I met with Trump in 2011. Did I ever tell you the story?
No.
Okay, in 2011, he was thinking of running for office, I guess, and I was on my first overnight date with my wife since we got married. And we got married in 2005, but she was pregnant those first, 6 years. So we're like, okay, we're going to go on a little overnight date. And we went to Universal Studios. And we were walking around Universal Studios, and I get a phone call. And it's, hi, I'm so-and-so from Mr. Trump's office, and we'd like you to come to the Palm. Mr. Trump would like you to be at a meeting tomorrow at the Palm 2. I said, I'm in Los Angeles. And like, I know. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of all the costs and expenses if you'd like to come here. So let me talk to my wife. I'll call you back. So I talked to my wife. She said, yeah, go. Why? She's like, why does he want to talk to you? Why does Mr. Trump, my wife's a New Yorker, why does Mr. Trump want to talk to you? I'm like, I think he's probably wanting to run for office. So I flew from L.A. to New York. Went to the Palm 2, by the way, great restaurant. There were a bunch of folks I knew there. And there was a big table for all these political consultant types. And then Mr. Trump, President Trump, just Mr. Trump then had his table out. And when it was my turn to go meet him, and there were two guys, one guy to his left, one guy to his right. And they asked what I thought of him running for office. And I said I said, Mr. Trump, you will never be president of the United States. And if you run, I will take you out in Iowa. That's what I said. I said, because you're not pro-life. And I came here to tell you that grifters are taking advantage of you, because anyone telling you could become a Republican nominee and win being pro-abortion is lying to you and just wants to milk you for a couple of years as you build this campaign. So you know. And he, I got a nice smile and a nod, and I was shoot away, and I ate my steak and flew home. So when he ended up changing his position on abortion, I didn't believe it. I thought it was not sincere. But as I watched as his administration unfurled, as I watched his, action after action, and most things that most people wouldn't see, behind the scene things at State Department or at the UN, I saw his politicals fighting with top cover. I had to go back, and I watched a lot of those tapes that you talked about, like when he was asked about partial birth abortion. But when I went back and I watched all these tapes, these interviews, do you remember how he reacted when he was asked that question? He put his arms up and he stepped away and he goes, I hate that word.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I don't remember that.
You got to go back. And every time in the 90s and the 2000s, when he's ever asked about abortion, he has a visceral reaction. So this is what I tell people cleverly, during the campaign when people said, do you believe his conversion? And I'd say, no, I don't believe his conversion. I don't believe he ever had a conversion. I think he was always pro-life, but he was a New York businessman that would say whatever pious words he had to say to please the gods of that city so he could build his buildings, run his casinos, do his business. And when he realized that that there was political expediency and expressing what he's always believed, he did it with reckless abandon. That's what I believe. Don't know. Maybe he's just a businessman that's good to his friends, keeps his word, honors deals. I don't know what it is, but I kind of believe this guy was always pro-life, and that's why he was fighting in the shadows. And he was letting his appointees fight in the shadows, and he was appointing people that were really good.
Yeah, I do think that's right. And he's told the story about how he became pro-life, and I think he was actually talking about a father who wanted to have the child aborted, but they ended up having it, and it told the child was great, he got good grades, and I think there was speculation that he was actually talking about his daughter Tiffany, right? Because I think that was the one child that he had with only one woman.
And he was the father that wanted the abortion.
Yeah, and so I think
That's
that was
powerful.
almost
That's beautiful.
yeah.
Whoa.
Um, but
If
that gets to a really
whoa.
important point though about abortion, right? Because it's brought up as if it's a women's only issue, and pro-lifers know that that's not true. But you know, the fathers have such an important role in both aspects, right? Like the father of the child has, like, if the father of the child really wants the baby, no mom actually, I think, wants to abort. I think the moms abort because they're scared, they don't have the support there, and they just want it to go away. I also think though that the father of the mother has a role, right? Like they're if the so if even if the father of the mother doesn't or wants the abortion, I think that even if the father of the child doesn't, I think that the mother, the child, mother will be more likely to abort because she doesn't want to disappoint her father. I just think that there's so many, but at the same time, I think that if you're a loving father and you're active and engaged in your child's life, and they feel like they can trust you and you're supportive of them, I don't think the mom will abort. Um, and I don't know. It's just a hunch for me. I view the role of fathers on both ends of it as being infinitely important when it comes to whether or not abortion is unthinkable in this country.
Well, you and I sort of break the stereotype, which is not even has any grounding in reality of what pro-lifers are, especially pro-life men. I mean, I'm responsible for an abortion when my high school girlfriend got pregnant when I was 16, and her father forced her to have an abortion. Several months later, I was 17 by the time of the abortion, a forced third trimester abortion. I was in basic training. But you became a father as a teenager as well. And maybe in even a tougher situation. My mom and dad had me when they were teenagers, never lived together. I never saw them in the same view. I never looked up in my life and saw my parents in the same view. So I come from a different place. You had very loving, faithful parents. So, and for you in many ways, it might have been harder than for me. Because to me, it was like, great, I'm a dad. I'm going to get the heck out of here and go live my life. But for you, there must have been like this sense of, I didn't have any fear that I would be disappointing my family. You must have had sort of a sense. Did you have a fear that you'd be disappointing your family when you found out your girlfriend was pregnant?
I did, but it didn't have a bearing on the situation simply because my mom had me, she got pregnant with me before she was married. Her mother got pregnant. So my grandmother got pregnant with my mom at 17. So like it just wasn't even an option, right? Like it was unthinkable to us. Like
we might be related because I tell people in my family the first pregnancy gestation is only about 5 months. After that, we're like normal humans, 9 months. But the first pregnancy, the gestation in the Jones family, typically 5 months. We might be related.
We might be. That's a very interesting.
Strange. It's science. It's science. Strange. It's science. It's unique. Okay, so, but I've heard in other families, it's more common than people would think. Okay, so, so your mom, so you weren't worried because you could be like, "What about you, mom?"
Yeah, basically.
But
at the same time, it's like once you get that initial rush, and it's like, oh no, but then you start thinking about the baby as a baby, right? Like in holding that baby and holding that baby's hand and teaching them how to walk and teaching them how to read and then it's like, oh, this is gonna be awesome, like and you don't think about the sleepless nights and the diapers and all the
you think about like I get to buy little green army men and wiffle ball bats.
Yeah,
this is gonna be great.
Yeah, and no, but I think that's. And I talked to my mom about this because when my dad passed, it was like I was just really grateful for him because, had he gotten her pregnant and he was one of these scummy guys that you see so much today and was like, I don't want this baby, I'll take you to the clinic, blah, 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 she might have gotten an abortion. And I was like, Mom, he was so great. She's like, Terry, I just want you to know, like, it was not an option for me. Like, we don't do that. It just, I wanted you, even if your dad wasn't in the picture, I would have had you. And, it's just, I don't know. I do think it does make a difference whether or not the father of the child is engaged and excited, and also whether the father of the expecting mother is engaged and excited.
Isn't it
really
sad that I know, let's go back. By the way, I know many of you listening are wealthy white people. We love you. Go to thegreatcampaign.org and donate before you hear what I'm about to say again. Because it seems like we're harping on rich white people, but I have friends that are like, they're wealthy. And, they went to the wrong schools like Yale and learned wrong things. And they're both 40 and they're having their first pregnancy and they're horrified. What are you afraid of? It seems like in America today, I love my family. I love my mother-in-law. I love my father-in-law. But I got to tell you, whenever one of our pregnancies was greeted with like thrills, it was like, oh, honeymoon baby. Oh, isn't that a little too soon? Oh, Irish twins. Another that quick? Is that the way you should do it? What? What? And this is just, I think this is in our society generally, that children are universally greeted with fear, not just the poor, unwed young woman. It's don't you notice there's something sick and bizarre? Like, by the way, having babies is like what we're here to do. And it's the best thing on earth being a parent.
Right. And it's like,
why are we afraid
we have
of
it backwards. Well, you have it. So many kids have it backwards, right? They think, oh, I need to get a job, and I need to get a college degree, and I need to make enough money to have a house, and then I can have a family, then I can get married. No, you're misreading it. By the way, you're misreading how much you actually are motivated by your own internal desires. You start a family, and you get a job to support that family. You get an education to support that family. The whole point of life is family and serving others, right? I mean, I would say that really the whole point of life is to serve and love others. And the easiest way to do that is by starting your own family. You can do that through a lot of ways. I don't want to say that, if you can't have kids or you can't find a spouse.
And look, G.K. Chesterton didn't have kids. He lived a happy life. I always say if I didn't have kids, I'd have a happy life too. Because there's we're created to know and love God. But to be fearful of pregnancy, it seems to be a universal fear in our society, which is just, I don't understand it.
Well, there was a South Park episode when I was growing up where they were mocking the sex ed classes in grade school as being extreme. And you have this teacher that's going into really graphic stuff with sex, and then they start warning the children about STDs, and they're going through all, herpes and chlamydia and all of this, and syphilis, and then he says, but the worst STD of all, pregnancy. And it was a joke, but it was really showing the ideology of this neoliberal world, as you call it, and this sexual left agenda. Like, they really do view pregnancy as like an STD that just needs to get treated and taken care of. And it's the exact opposite of what pregnancy is. It's the exact opposite of what new life is. Babies keep the world moving, and they make your life so much more enjoyable. My kids break a lot of stuff. They cost me a lot of money, but it's all well worth it. I mean, they say some pretty hilarious stuff as well, and they do some pretty cool things.
But don't you notice your friends your age? And you're a young guy still. How old are you?
I'm 35. I'll be 36 at the end of this month.
So you're a young guy still. So at 36, there's a lot of single Catholic guys your age, peers of yours, trampling around D.C., right, looking for wives. Don't you notice that your peers, and I would say it's the same thing for me. At 50, I have friends that have never been married. They have more money problems than me. It's a mystery. I think being single is expensive. I think being single leads people to just be wasteful and stupid with money. Once you have a family, all of a sudden you get kind of ordered and disciplined and thoughtful about what you do with your money. So
you're forced to save. You're forced to be thrifty. And by the way, you're also more motivated to work harder at your job, to ask your boss for pay raises more often, right? Like there's a weird relationship between your success in your career and your family, right? Because if you're really motivated by your hungry kids at home who need a good education, who need good clothes, who want to play sports, who want meals and have a nice house over their heads, you're going to be more active and engaged in your job. You're going to be hungrier. You're going to be more motivated to actually accomplish things than if you're just trying to make a legacy for yourself. I mean, you have to be a real egomaniac to be that driven without a family.
Yeah, like what are you driven for, right? Yeah, I think if I didn't have children, I'd be very happy because I'd probably be that 50-year-old cabana boy at Guam working at like a resort, taking tourists hiking and then drinking all night, writing a novel that I would never ever finish. That would be my plan. Right? So yeah, so yeah, this idea that I think that's why I love what you guys are doing at the American Principles Project and kind of honing in on this, that the family needs an advocate. You know, it's what we do at the Vulnerable People Project when we'll work with, like, let's say it's the Yazidi in Iraq. It's a small, embattled ethnic minority that just was savaged by ISIS. And when we would talk to them about why the U.S. State Department isn't paying them any attention or the media is not paying them attention, we'd have to say, listen, you're stuck in a very important country in the world, and you have Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Russia, China, Saudi, all the Gulf states, Israel, the United States. Everyone has a stake in what happens where you live and where your family has lived literally since before Abraham was Yazidi, before Abraham said bye and went for a walk south. Your family's been in those valleys, and yet you have less of a say. So we need to have a PAC. We need to have an organization. We need to have somebody advocating for you in Washington full time. And that's what you got. But it's the same thing. It's kind of strange to think that the family is it seems such a universal, like the family is universal. You wouldn't think of it as an embattled special interest. But what you're saying, what I think APP is saying, is we are embattled. And sadly, we become almost an endangered species of special interest.
Yeah, it's interesting because the family didn't really need a special interest group getting politicians elected and unelected based on what they were doing to our families, because for so long it was just common sense, right? You knew that you couldn't pass a tax increase that would be too hard on families. You knew that you couldn't sexualize children. We just had these generations that just wouldn't even think about doing what our progressive enemies seek to do to us. And so we're kind of a little bit behind the ball, but I'm telling you, this movement's growing very quickly. About 3 years ago, we decided to make this move very deliberately to fill the political void for families by getting people elected and unelected based on what they do to our families. And we were at $2 million in 2019. In 2020, we shot up to $7.5 million. This year, we're already at $9 million. We're going to probably get to $12 million, maybe a little bit more than that, hopefully. But we're going to make these guys pay a political price for hurting our families, for putting boys in our girls' sports, boys in our girls' locker rooms, for teaching our kids about transgenderism and confusing them and ruining their lives and taking away the rights of parents. These kids
don't have romance and love and all the things, crazy things we had. It's just been destroyed. It's ugly. It's sad. Can I throw a curveball at you?
Of course.
You've been such an outspoken opponent of pornography and what it does to our kids. I have noticed, and this is a curveball, we're changing gears, and I promise you this will be the last question. But it's an important question. I was talking to Christopher West. I don't know if you know Chris West, the Theology of the Body guy. And I am really horrified at the rise of what I will call illiberalism. And when I say the word, when I use liberal in this context, I don't mean the political and ideological left, or I don't mean progressives. I mean those who adhere to the American way of life. The Anglo-American understanding of liberty is expressed in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, the Magna Carta, the English Bill of Rights, the Glorious Revolution, That idea of freedom. There seems to be, in the Catholic space, it's called integralism, which is a rejection of the American understanding of liberty, a conflation of neoliberalism with what until the 1920s in this country was referred to as liberalism, and then since the 1920s we refer to it as conservatism, which is, I know, confusing for everyone. But I think at the heart of this rejection of political freedom, of representative government, of equality under law, here's my question. Do you see the rise of these anti-American illiberal ideologies on the left and the right with young people? Have you noticed this?
Oh, absolutely. No. There is this. You're seeing it everywhere, and it is popping up on the right, and they're basically coming to the conclusion because of this libertarianism that crept in the Republican Party. They are now thinking, well, the Constitution means we can't regulate porn. The Constitution means we can't protect kids from being sexualized. So guess what? It all failed, and we need something else. And that's a dangerous place to be in, right? We don't want government administrators and government bureaucrats managing every aspect of our lives. You know, Adrian Vermeule, who I like most of the time. I like him a lot, but he's got some really crazy ideas.
He's a Shia. I call him a Shia. Zmirak labeled him the Shia Catholic. He wants.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a Shia Catholic. Not even a Shia Catholic. He's an Ayatollah Catholic.
Yeah, and that's not what you want.
Yeah, no.
That didn't really work out well in history. But he was criticizing the Supreme Court struck down the EPA's ability to regulate carbon emissions because Congress never gave them the authority to regulate carbon emissions. He was criticizing that. What world are you living in when unelected bureaucrats get to manage that aspect of our lives?
There's no
and if
difference.
You're going to give them that power.
No, I'm sorry. There's no difference to me between Adrian Vermeule and Antifa. They are enemies of freedom. Scott Hahn.
Right.
I don't know if you ever took Dr. Scott Hahn. I think he's got a PhD, right? Scott Hahn wrote an integralist book. I don't know if you know that. It's called It's Right and Just.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's quite disheartening. So here's my question. So you see it. So we acknowledge it's there. I think at the heart of it, it's pornography. Young people realize that they have been violated. And they are so angry. And by the way, they should be. Because the most beautiful thing in life has been stolen from them. What makes life meaningful? Even, as Christians, in the Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon, like Eros, even a man's longing for God and man's love for a woman and vice versa, that is like at the heart of everything about what it is to be a human. And this ideology, this neoliberal ideology, has robbed them of Eros. And I think it leads to a hostility. And then they're reacting into these illiberal ideologies on the left and the right. And that you and I, as strange as it might sound, when we're old men, I'm already there. When you catch up and I'm older, we may be battling a really strange mutation of anti-Americanism from the right.
No, I think there's something there. I mean, because it's obvious to me that when you, like, one of the reasons why we oppose the sexualization of children, at least the reason I give, there's a litany, is because when you sexually break someone, you break them at their core and their basic being, you create really unhappy people who want to then go and cause harm to other people. And they probably don't even view it as harm, but they do, and they cause harm to other people. And so no happy people ever choose Marxism or communism or these oppressive things. Only unhappy people do. And I think I see a connection there because the official, through the research that they come out with, it's probably younger, but the official age of first exposure to porn in America on average is 11 years old. 11 years old, you don't even know what the hell's going on at that point. You haven't even hit puberty yet. But your sexual innocence is being robbed at earlier and earlier ages. And so it's like when they start talking about kindergarten and second and first grade, like you're talking about 6 to 9 years old. And they want to sexualize you in school and tell you what homosexuality is and what transgenderism is. And, like what in the world?
How old were you? We're different generations, right? So you were 2 when I went in the Army. How old were you the first time you saw pornography?
I think I was 10 or 11.
And what was it?
Well, I guess
was it a magazine? Was it a VHS tape? Or
I guess it depends on what the definition of porn is. I mean, I think I first saw like boobs in a movie like when I was probably 7 or 8. But the first time,
I never thought about that. Yeah, the first time I saw, like, what is going on with my mind and my body? What's happening here? It's going to sound really creepy. I guess my mom took me to the drive-in to see Blue Lagoon. You don't even know. Do you know the movie Blue Lagoon?
No. I've seen the movie cover. Back in the day when they had movie rental places like Blockbuster. What I think it was? I actually think I was younger. I think I was 9 years old.
Okay.
In 3rd grade at a friend's birthday party.
All right.
We were spending the night, and they had those blurry channels. Late
so
at
you guys were like, look. I remember that you looked through the snow, Skinamax. And you'd go, "Oh, boob!" You'd see it through the snow.
Yeah, it was Skinamax.
By the way, I need to put a parental warning on this episode at this point.
But yeah, that was like when they had like blurry channels. That was like my first exposure to porn. Was like 3rd grade, Skinamax, like midnight at a friend's house.
And think how rare. I mean, so for me, it was like the Sears catalog was the first kind of naked woman you saw, and then I remember it was like someone found a magazine at a garbage dumpster somewhere, and kids rode their bikes like from every neighborhood for 15 miles. But and then it might be years in between. Like in the 5th grade, someone found a magazine. In freshman year, someone found a video cassette tape. But now it's in every child's pocket. They have these phones and they're just curious, right? So when 11-year-olds are looking at pornography, there's nothing sexual about it for them. It's just curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's something deceitful about it, right? And this is also kind of Luciferian. When you're a little kid or even like a teenager, you look at porn as like sex. It's like your own little, like, it's like the type of sex you can have. And in reality, it's anti-sex. Porn is the elimination of sex. Sex is what you do with another person. It's something that you share with someone else. And pornography convinces these young men and now young women that this is sex. And this is the type of sex you can get anytime, anywhere, whenever you want, however you want, just no other person. It's porn is the elimination of sex. And like now you have sex robots, right? Now you have virtual reality sex. Virtual reality porn. And it's even more nefarious. I mean, like the things that they have now, you guys don't even need. There was so you and I both like to have non-traditional conservative friends. I struck up a friendship a few years ago through a porn debate on whether or not we should ban porn. Her name's Brandy Love. She's like one of the top porn actresses in the world. And I wrote an article about banning porn and how we could do it constitutionally. And she responded to it, basically saying that anyone who wants to ban porn is not conservative. They're against the First Amendment. And so I had my PR guy reach out to her and see if there was any common ground where we could, have a debate, but then at least agree on like, protecting kids or shutting down the tube sites that don't even verify age. And what was funny is that she told me that she had filmed a virtual reality porn video. And she said, the thing that bothers me about it, it's too real. And she said, I could see a day. This is from a porn star who's made millions of dollars making porn. She said, I could see a day where men and women don't need each other for sex. And that's really scary to me because that's what makes sex special is you're sharing something with another person. And I mean, like the irony was lost on her, right? I mean, like her whole business was making it so that people could, not have someone to have sex with. But that's coming from the industry. And that's the interesting thing about this world that we live in and art and the things that I'm not saying porn's art, but I'm saying like people, even if you're not living the best life, you can still have truth creep out of your mouth. You like Justin Bieber, right? Like if people have problems with him, but he wrote this, I don't, this is going way down the road, but he wrote this song with Chance the Rapper called Holy, about holy matrimony.
Oh, I love that song. Are you kidding me?
Well, there's this line that Chance the Rapper says.
Oh, go ahead.
But Chance the Rapper closes his rap part and he says, I know that we believe in God, but I know that God believes in us. And it's like Chance the Rapper is saying that. Like, what a humbling phrase that, like, God, not only do we believe in God, but He actually believes in us to be able to do what He put us on this earth to do. Right? It's like, I don't know, truth. John Mayer, right? John Mayer has these songs about his parents' divorce, and he's worried about turning into his father and holding grudges, or is he going to be like his mother? And the truth comes out through the people you least expect it. And it's because we're all human, and God can work through anyone, even porn stars, even movie stars, and
maybe even
musicians.
more through them, because they've been so broken. Alan Bloom's book, I talk about this book a lot, The Closing of the American Mind. He died of HIV/AIDS, but he was in the early 90s. He was a political philosopher, student of Leo Strauss's, wrote this great book, The Closing of the American Mind. And I read it in the early 90s the first time. But what really captured him was that Eros was dying in society. And this was a guy that lived kind of a very dissolute homosexual life. So he got there first, right? He kind of could see it first. And he had that vision first. Who would know better than this porn star, who could express the truth of this actually better, right? Any more than who could express the sorrow of abortion more than a woman who had an abortion, or a preborn child who survived an abortion. It's
Jason, can I ask you a question? And you ask me a lot of questions.
Yeah, sure.
You keep using the word eros, and I know the basic definition. What are you meaning when you say that? The elimination of eros.
Well, Eros was the goddess of love. She was she was this mischievous little goddess of love. It's this erotic, this love that you have, that a man and a woman have, a married couple has for each other. It's romantic love. And you can even hear it in the music. It's just not there. And how could it be there? There's no longing anymore, right? There's just apps. It's very sad. Like, people, I'm sure you guys go here. I always say, like, Air Supply couldn't exist today. Right? It wouldn't make any sense to any young person. And they've been robbed of this. I remember when I was in an Uber, and it was when I first started hearing about the Tinder app. And this young man was a dork, but he was just going on and on about how amazing Tinder is and how he can hook up with 2 to 3 different girls a night, every night. He's like, no wasting time, no nothing. And I'm looking at this guy, and clearly he's telling the truth. He wasn't lying or bragging. He was just excited. Like when I first got the Mach 3 razor, and like I could shave my face without razor burn, you tell everyone, get the Mach 3. He was just so excited to talk to me about this app. And I said, brother, doesn't it bother you that the woman you marry right now is in the same app doing the same thing? And he literally, and I said, do you think the two of you are going to have any intimacy or ability to really connect or relate with each other by the time you find each other? And he pulled over and looked at me like this was the most stunning revelation that he'd ever heard. He goes, I never thought of that. He'd never thought of that. And that's something. And that's what's happening. These young people aren't thinking about it. They're being led. Our media hypes it up. The sex education tells them, it's no big deal. You got to watch out for some landmines, like STDs, the worst of all being pregnancy. Isn't that something they see pregnancy? There was, what's that TV show? Prairie Home Companion. Do you know the Prairie Home Companion?
No, I don't.
It's this radio show. There used to be this radio show. I don't know if it's still on. It's on NPR. And there was this bit about this Catholic priest in Minnesota, like Lake Winnetonka. And he would give a homily every year on contraception. And this was the homily. If you get on the train to Chicago, don't be surprised if you end up in Chicago. That was his homily on contraception. And the marital act's purpose is to create life and to unite you with the person who you created life with. So don't be surprised if when you engage in the marital act, you create life. And even if you don't create life, don't be surprised if you create a bond that when you break that bond leads to sorrow and pain. And if you break it over and over and over again, that you're just not going to eventually crack yourself. But to these young people, they're not told that, so it will come to them as a startling revelation. And back to that original point, I think it's going to lead to sort of a rejection of freedom generally, because they're going to conflate neoliberalism with liberty, and they're going to see freedom as what's robbed them of everything beautiful in life. And there will be virulent ideologies that we already see popping up here and there that are rejecting freedom altogether, because they're saying if the cost of freedom is transgender story hour, then who wants it? Scrap the Constitution. Let's let's do away with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
that's
Terry,
where we live in.
Terry Schilling, I have taken 90 minutes of your day. So where are we going to send people? Before I got to sell pillows, we're going to sell My Pillow. We're going to sell. Do you read Epic Times?
I do. I love Epic Times. They're great.
Isn't it?
I love Jan.
It's the number 4 newspaper in America now, so I'm told. I haven't counted myself, but I haven't done a survey.
It's like the only real newspaper. Like they're the only ones that actually have news and not propaganda.
You're right. That's it. I'm going to start saying that. It is the only newspaper left. And name another newspaper left in America. I don't know of any other. The Washington Times. But it's still kind of, can I say, it's kind of yawn. I thought
yawn is great.
I thought it was great. And then the Epic Times shows up and you're just like, whoa, what is this? This is unbelievable. It's amazing how many important things aren't being covered at all. So I have to sell newspapers. By the way, if you want the newspaper, Terry Schilling, go to ireadepoch.com. Use the code Jason Jones. You can get a subscription. Your first month's $1. Then you put in Jason Jones, $77 for the year. You get the print and digital subscription. Do you have a subscription already?
I don't, but I'm going to go sign up.
You're a father. Do you know why I get the print subscription?
So your kids read it.
That's it. And they have great things for kids, by the way. They have a great women's magazine. So if you go to ireadepic.com, you'll see that. Jason Jones is the code. If you want the pillows, go to mypillow.com and use the code Jones, Mr. Schilling, and you can get those Giza Dream sheets, which I cannot believe that you've been on Bannon's show as much as you have been in and around this movement. You've been inundated with My Pillow commercials, and you have never cracked yet.
No, I have the pillows. I don't have the sheets.
Oh, you have the pillows.
I'm up to my neck in My Pillows. I even have the mattress topper, but I don't have the Giza sheets yet.
Oh, I didn't know. I misunderstood. I just thought when you said you have all the pillows you need, I thought you just, you went to the Walmart and got the Made in China pillows.
Oh,
these are made in America.
No.
Okay, so you have the pillows.
The mattress topper is a game changer. The mattress topper is everything.
I've been telling people that. The mattress topper is on. I have a Tempur-Pedic bed that my wife will not let me put the mattress topper on top of that. So it goes in the kids' room, and they pull it out to play, like Civilization or Diplomacy or whatever they're playing on the mattress topper. But sometimes I will sneak away and go upstairs, and I will read, but I really want to fall asleep on it. So my wife wakes up and goes, "Why did you sleep upstairs?" She gets mad. I'm like, "Oh, I fell asleep reading, but I just wanted to sleep on the mattress topper, to tell you the truth." So, okay, you have the mattress topper, you have the pillows, you just don't have the Giza Dream sheets. Did you use a code to get those products?
You know what I used? I used Steve's code.
Don't say it. Whatever it is, don't say it. I want him to use the code Jones. All right, now what do we need to promote with you, brother? They need to become. Tell us about
big
this.
Family members.
Yeah,
they need to join our big family. So
okay.
In order to join APP's big family, you just go to savethefamily.app. We're going to give you a T-shirt, a hat, a tumbler, golf. I mean, we got everything. But the bigger thing is that you're going to help us fund this war against the progressive left and their war on our families. The contributions go to funding our campaign ads that get these guys unelected. And look, the lowest membership is less than a woke Disney Plus subscription. It's $8 a month, and you're funding the fight for the future. You're funding your children so that they can live in a world where they're not sexualized, where your grandchildren aren't sexualized. That's what we're fighting. And it's going to get people elected and unelected. We're supporting some great candidates. We're opposing some really terrible candidates. But it all comes down to the laws that we can pass and the laws that we can enforce. So we need to build a political operation for families, and that's what our Big Family members are doing. And
this November is of utmost importance.
Yes, it's do or die. I mean, if we can't win this year on families after everything that they've been doing to sexualize our kids and destroy their innocence, we can't win anything. You're never going to win on taxes if you can't win on opposing the sexualization of children.
No, come on. And the biggest tax everyone's dealing with right now is inflation. We got to fight for our families. Terry, I am just so grateful that I had a privilege to meet you when you were a young man, a young student, and to watch you grow up and become so influential. And I'm really grateful that you would take time to come on the Jason Jones Show.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
All right, later, brother.
Later.
All right, guys, you got to go there. I'm going to put the website, Terry's website, the American Principles Project website, in the show notes. But I also need you to go to the Vulnerable People Project's website. It's thegreatcampaign.org. They're the main sponsor of the show. We stand in solidarity with the most vulnerable people in the world during the most challenging times. This week, we're continuing with our hardening of schools in Afghanistan. Our cameras have gone up in many schools. We're adding some schools. We're finishing our first women's medical center. It should be done by the end of this month. And we're continuing our work in Ukraine. I'm actually going to an ICE hearing for Ukrainian migrants who came here as they were asked by the Biden administration in a great act of virtue signaling, saying, we're helping Ukraine too. And they were promptly sent to jails where they've been sitting. I'll be jumping out of plane and heading to their hearing on Monday, trying to get these Ukrainian women out of American prisons for doing nothing other than coming to this country to flee Russia as they were asked. Everything we do with your support. So go to thegreatcampaign.org and become a monthly donor. FYI, our website today was hacked by it was a very sophisticated attack. They hacked and deleted our website, but we had it backed up. And my team jumped in. It just was a few hours and the site's back up. A lot of folks don't like us. The CCP, who did it? I don't know. Was it the CCP? Was it Russia? Was it the abortion industry? Who knows? But our site's back up. So until next time, guys, and by next time I mean tomorrow, because we're continuing on with our 49 days in a row celebrating the end of Roe. This has been Jason Jones with the great Terry Schilling. Until tomorrow, aloha.
This has been the Jason Jones Show, powered by Mudhouse Media.